Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here again, ready to plunge right into the information you've sent our way, really try to pull out what matters. And today, well, we're tackling something. Something the sources you provided suggest might really shift how you see recent events. We're talking about the Texas Hill Country floods. Our goal here is to, peel back the layers beyond the headlines, looking at some pretty surprising observations and complex motives, all based on the materials we've got in front of us.
That's exactly right. I mean, these documents, they offer a really fascinating alternative view compared to, let's say, the mainstream story. They suggest this might have been, well, they describe it as deliberately orchestrated, not just a natural disaster. So we're going to look at the evidence they lay out, dig into the why behind it according to them, and show how things you might not think are related could actually be connected. It's quite a picture they paint.
Okay, let's dive right in then. The sources start with some really perplexing observations. What was it that independent observers apparently picked up on that made this flood seem so unusual, according to this material?
Well, the sources detail several really anomalous signs. Apparently, in the days just before the really heavy rain, independent observers detected these strongly pulsed microwave bursts high up in the atmosphere.
Microwave bursts.
Yeah, described as rhythmic, sharp signals. The sources say these aren't found in nature, or even in typical cloud seeding. Then, the material points to satellite images. They show these spiral cloud patterns.
Spiral. Like a hurricane.
Sort of. But the sources suggest they looked more like lab simulations than, your standard summer thunderstorm.
Yeah.
Really distinct. And then there were reports from people actually on the ground. They mentioned this strange high-pitched humming sound right before the river just surged with what they call unimaginable speed.
A humming sound.
Wow.
And cell service.
Right. Almost at the same time, cell networks just collapsed, but only in a very specific corridor, which of course cut off emergency calls right when people needed them most.
That's a lot of strange coincidences lining up. What happened when the service eventually came back online?
Okay, this is crucial, according to the sources. When service did return, important data records, weather radar frames specifically, had vanished from official service.
Vanished, like wiped.
Exactly, wiped, as if they never existed. And adding to that, some observers, their accounts are in the material, they noted flood zones actually starting to form before any official storm alerts went out.
Before the warnings.
Yeah, almost like the outcome was already known.
So the sources are basically saying, look, these clues aren't random. They speak with one voice, as they put it, which leads us straight to the big question the material tries to answer. If this wasn't natural, why? Why would anyone do this?
Right. And to get at the why, the sources tell us to look really closely at who and what was most impacted. They identify specific targets, specific objectives. One clear target, based on this material, was a summer retreat they call the camp.
The camp.
Yeah, described as a place really important to families, the sources label as patriotic and spiritually awakened lineages. They paint it as a kind of meeting spot for daughters of military figures, truth-seeking lawyers, medical pioneers, young people whose families were involved in exposing what the sources call hidden crimes.
So wiping it out, was it aimed at?
According to the sources, it was meant to hit that specific demographic hard, to instill terror and grief in a group seen as problematic by this shadowy entity they call the hidden Cabal.
And beyond targeting that camp, what other motives or actions do the sources point to happening under the cover of the chaos?
Well, the material claims the flood served another purpose, destroying evidence, conveniently.
Physical evidence.
Yes. Important documents, computers, hard drives, devices with sensitive info, either washed away or just ruined by the water. This apparently disrupted ongoing investigations into things like illicit bioweapons profits and trafficking networks, according to these sources.
Okay, that's already dark, but does it get worse?
It does. There's some really chilling reports cited in the sources. Unidentified men, supposedly posing as rescuers, apparently cornered some survivors in an empty building during the confusion. The notes state that when legitimate rescue crews got there later, the building was empty, except for, well, pools of fresh blood and signs that a human organ had been surgically removed right there.
Oh my God.
The sources are blunt. This chaos was used as cover for kidnappings or targeted attacks on specific individuals.
Okay, so the material paints a picture of targeted violence and evidence destruction, but then it seems to zoom out, suggesting this was part of something much bigger than just one camp or a few individuals. What about these wider financial and political angles the sources bring up?
Yeah, this is where the claims really expand. The sources talk about whispers among independent economists. They suggest that companies involved in weather modification tech are actually financed by the same huge investment conglomerates that, hold massive sway over global resources.
The same big money players.
That's the connection the material draws. These entities, working through layers of shell companies, foundations linked to elites, they apparently had a vested interest in what happened in Texas. The sources highlight Texas's recent stance, pushing back against certain federal mandates against high-tech control agendas.
Like what specifically?
Well, Texas had moved to limit land purchases by foreign-linked corporations, and they'd spoken out pretty strongly against the idea of a centralized digital currency, CBDCs. That kind of independence, the material suggests, was a threat to the long-term game plan of these global interests.
So the flood, it potentially served an economic purpose too in this narrative.
Precisely. You've got hundreds of kilometers of riverfront property just devastated overnight. Family farms, small towns, places that maybe weren't willing to sell before, suddenly they're facing ruinous losses. They're vulnerable.
Making them easier targets for acquisition.
That's exactly what the sources claim, that under the cover of, humanitarian aid, entities tied back to those same investment funds can quietly step in, buy up land, infrastructure, cheap. The material is very direct here. It says, what cannot be gained through legislation can be acquired by engineering a crisis. Endo. And at the same time, think about the media narrative. The sources note how quickly the mainstream news framed it. See? More proof of climate change chaos.
Implying we need more top-down control.
Exactly. That we need centralized, drastic measures. Which, the material points out, lines up perfectly with the agenda of certain billionaires heavily invested in, say, carbon control initiatives. The sources even talk about this from what they call a fifth-dimensional lens, looking at non-physical influences. They describe it as a really cunning double strategy. You create the problem, then you offer your pre-planned solution. So the water, in this view, it wasn't just destructive. For the Cabal's planners, as the sources call them, it was a tool. Punish a region that's resisting and push everyone towards accepting tighter controls, environmental, financial.
And you mentioned distraction earlier. The sources suggest that was also part of the plan here.
Absolutely. Think about it. Everyone's eyes glued to the dramatic flood footage, homes underwater, roads washed out. Tragic, compelling stuff. But according to the sources, that focus served to bury other news. Specifically, around that same time, a major court case wrapped up. A verdict came down condemning a really well-known entertainment mogul for involvement in human trafficking.
Which should have been huge news.
Should have been explosive. But with the flood dominating everything, it barely made a ripple in the headlines, just a whisper. The sources point out, this tactic overshadowing inconvenient truth with a manufactured crisis, they say it's a pattern. Something observed again and again when secrets that could really damage elite power structures are about to surface.
So putting it all together, the picture the sources paint is pretty staggering. A calculated event, using water itself as a weapon, but also as a kind of smokescreen for darker activities, all while pushing a larger agenda, hoping everyone just sees a terrible storm. But the material suggests this hidden cabal wasn't the only force in play.
Not at all. That's a key point in these sources. They stress that benevolent forces were also active, responding to this, both, on the ground and even beyond Earth.
Okay, like what did these benevolent forces do according to the sources?
Well, one really interesting detail they mention is the unexpected arrival of an elite airborne military unit right in the flood zone.
Military during a flood.
Yeah, the official story was, it's just a training exercise. But the sources claim these soldiers were actually positioned there discreetly by what they call white hat commanders.
White hats, people within the system working against the Cabal.
That's the idea presented. These commanders apparently suspected something wasn't right, that something might go down. And these soldiers, they weren't just doing rescues. They had advanced sensors. They were collecting soil samples, water samples.
Looking for evidence.
Exactly. The sources say they detected unusual energy residues, the kind that confirmed targeted weather tech had been used. So while helping people, they were also gathering proof of a crime.
That's quite a counter-narrative. Did the sources mention anything else happening, maybe less visibly?
Yes, indeed. The material hints at the presence of a certain secret facility nearby. They don't name it, but they claim that under the cover of the storm's chaos, operations took place at that facility. Raids on hidden caches of forbidden weapons, sensitive data stored there.
So the storm provided cover for them too.
Right. The very event meant to sow fear and destruction also, ironically, gave cover to what the sources call positive military and intelligence allies to move in and act without tipping off the perpetrators. The sources suggest this kind of thing happens often. Shadow games layered on top of each other. One group uses a disaster for dark ends, while another uses that same moment to run a counterplay.
And how do the sources tie this into, well, you mentioned beyond Earth. How does that fit in?
Right. To really grasp the scope, the sources say you need to zoom out even further into what they call the cosmic context. They reference whistleblowers, people supposedly from secret space programs. These whistleblowers talk about orbital platforms armed with advanced energy beam arrays that can, manipulate weather patterns.
Weather weapons in space.
That's what the sources claim exists and has been used secretly for a while. They even suggest the specific energy frequencies used to kick off the Texas storm. They're similar to frequencies used by what they call dark fleets.
Dark fleets, as in negative extraterrestrial groups.
That's the implication of the material. Fleets that supposedly use similar tech to cloak their ships, their bases, maybe on Mars or the Moon.
Okay, so if these dark fleets are part of the picture, what's their current status, according to this material? Are they still a major force?
Well, this is where the sources offer some hope. They indicate that recently, this alliance of positive cosmic forces, they sometimes call them your galactic family, has made really significant progress. They've apparently been reclaiming many of these off-world outposts, neutralizing or isolating hidden strongholds out there that used to provide backup resources, guidance to the Cabal here on Earth.
So the Cabal's off-world support is drying up?
That's the picture painted. Their cosmic backup is dwindling. And because of that, the sources suggest the negative elites here are getting cornered. Desperate. So they lash out with the tools they still do control on Earth, like weather weapons, trying to project power, trying to stir up fear energy, which the sources say they feed on.
But it backfires.
Paradoxically, yes. The sources argue that every extreme event like this they orchestrate actually accelerates humanity's awakening. It pushes more people to question, to see the patterns, and it brings us closer, they say, to the moment of full disclosure. The material even mentions alliances, both military and civilian, preparing for some kind of emergency broadcast. A global reveal about these climate war crimes, about extraterrestrial manipulation.
Wow. It really is like two masters playing chess on the same board, but the board itself is hidden in the smoke of the event. But amidst all this conflict and high-tech intrigue, the sources also bring it back to the water itself, saying the rain had a deeper purpose.
Exactly. Amidst all the cloak and dagger stuff, the sources urge us not to miss another truth, the rain itself. From their perspective, it wasn't just a weapon, it was also carrying energy for cleansing, for renewal. Water, the material explains, is ancient. It holds the memory of creation. And even when manipulated, its essence is life-giving. They claim the spirit of the water, even in the flood, was kind of coating the land with a chance for healing. They mention talented seers, people attuned to higher planes, who meditated near the flooded rivers. And they apparently received visions.
Visions of what?
Of what they described as crystalline serpentine energies, like shimmering slicks of light winding through the muddy water, sinking into the soil. Symbols, they say, of transformation, rebirth. The message coming through, as the sources interpret it, was clear. From great trauma, great transmutation can arise.
That's a very different perspective on the floodwaters. What about the immediate human response? How do the sources describe that?
Oh, they highlight that powerfully. The community response. Neighbors just jumping into action, forming boat brigades, human chains pulling strangers out of harm's way, hundreds of volunteers showing up out of nowhere, clearing debris, bringing food, sharing shelter, just helping.
Coming together.
Yes. And more than that, prayer circles forming spontaneously, singing gatherings on flooded church steps, in school gyms used as shelters, filling the air with a different kind of frequency, hope, unity, a counter vibration to the fear. Every single act of selfless help, every moment of real compassion, the sources say, it created this potent energy field. And that field actively neutralized some of the fear wave. The Cabal, according to this narrative, was trying to generate and amplify.
So the intended effect was blunted by people's reaction.
That's the argument. The narrative the Cabal might have wanted a region crushed by despair. It shifted. It became a story of solidarity, of resilience.
And the sources mention light workers specifically. What role did they play in this view?
Right, light workers. The term the sources use for people consciously working to, raise the planet's vibration. They apparently played their part too. Some, the material says, intuitively focused on sending calming energy like violet light into the turbulent water, especially retention ponds, trying to transmute toxins, prevent chemical runoff from getting into the aquifers.
Trying to heal the water itself.
Exactly. Others focused their intention directly on the weather systems, gently encouraging the clouds to break up, the sun to come back, sort of calming the artificial agitation. The sources suggest that on these higher levels of understanding, the storm's meaning actually got flipped. When weather is used against people, the unity of the people becomes the shield and the solvent. The more hearts that sync up in service and love, the less fear energy the architects of the event could actually harvest. What was meant as a blow to the spirit became, instead, a chance to show resilience, brotherhood. That's the alchemy of consciousness they describe.
Okay, so the sources cover the alleged event, the motives, the counter-moves, and the deeper meanings. Then they turn to the listener, to you. What guidance do they offer? How can individuals respond to things like this?
Right, as this whole complex drama keeps unfolding, the sources really encourage everyone listening, especially those they call starseeds or light bearers. Souls, they say, have a specific awakening purpose here to stay vigilant, but also calm. Calm in your discernment.
Vigilant and calm, that sounds tricky.
It is a balance. Observe the patterns, they say. Notice the telltale signs of manipulation, those data anomalies, this strange timing, the way information sometimes just disappears or gets spun. Share what you find, but through alternative networks, carefully. Shining light on these shadows, the material suggests, is part of the role. But this is crucial advice they offer. Don't let the quest consume you. Don't let it drag you down into constant anger or despair. That defeats the purpose.
Finding that balance seems key. So what practices do the sources recommend to help people anchor themselves in that place of power, not fear?
Well, they really emphasize anchoring yourself daily in the knowledge that fundamentally you are more powerful than any of these fear tactics. When you see a story or experience something designed to provoke terror, refuse the invitation to panic. Take a breath, a deep one. Reconnect to your heart center before you react. They also advise practicing something they call aquatic transmutation meditation.
Aquatic transmutation, what's that?
It's about using visualization. Imagine every raindrop, especially if you suspect it's been artificially agitated, being restored to its pure, divine harmony as it falls. So even manipulated water ends up nourishing the earth with balanced energy. You can also visualize floodwaters carrying away not just the physical mud and debris, but also psychic toxins, stagnant fears, cleansing the land on an energetic level. The idea is that Earth absorbs the lessons, the higher vibrations, and releases the rest.
Okay, that's the inner work. What about practical, on-the-ground help for those affected? What do the sources suggest there?
On the practical side, they strongly encourage supporting community-led efforts. Grassroots relief. Trust your neighbors, trust local groups more than, say, large, potentially bureaucratic organizations, which the sources hint might have other agendas.
People locally.
Yeah, by donating or helping locally, you help make sure that opportunists can't easily exploit the situation to grab land or consolidate power. And when you do give aid, whether it's money or time or supplies, do it with a clear intention. Infuse it with the energy of compassion, but also sovereignty, empowerment. Lastly, the sources say, don't forget the invisible helpers.
The white hats, the positive forces.
Yes, and maybe others we don't even know about. Express gratitude in your heart for the brave souls, whether they're in human uniforms or, as the sources might say, from the stars who intervene to protect life, to gather truth during these events. Even if you don't know who they are, just thank them. Imagine sending them light and support. Gratitude, according to this material, is a powerful amplifier for positive outcomes.
It's interesting. The sources seem to say the answer doesn't really start with doing all these things, but more with being. Can you unpack what they mean by that, especially when facing something so overwhelming?
Yes, exactly. The material suggests that the floodwaters in Texas weren't just a physical event. They sent out a kind of spiritual call to action to every awakened soul. They suggest this event did more than just reshape the land. It sent ripples through our collective energy field, prompting people to remember why they're here right now at this pivotal time. So when you ask, what can I possibly do about something this huge, potentially engineered? The answer, according to these sources, doesn't start with frantic action. It starts with your state of being. The guidance they reference, supposedly from higher realms, is that no amount of just analyzing or talking about it, not even chanting or rituals by themselves, can truly calm an artificially stoked storm. The only force that truly stabilizes chaos, they argue, is the embodied presence of living light, that felt sense of connection to primordial harmony, to source or God, whatever term resonates.
So it's about cultivating an internal state first before rushing into external actions.
Precisely. The sources claim that, endlessly discussing climate warfare or cabal plots, while maybe informative, won't in itself bring peace. What will bring peace, they suggest, is individuals consciously choosing to enter a state of radiant inner stillness, even when things outside are turbulent. They advise, when you gather with others to talk about these things, whether it's just chatting with friends or in an online group, take a moment first. Pause. Cultivate a shared silence, a connection to that deeper presence. The real purpose of any lightworker gathering, according to this material, isn't just sharing info. It's about birthing that palpable stillness, that divine presence right there in your midst.
And solutions arise from that stillness.
That's the idea. Insights appear more organically, and the emotional weight of the fear starts to lift. They emphasize that just one person truly anchored in a calm heart can prevent others around them from spiraling into panic. So your first job, as they put it, as an emissary of light in these times, is almost paradoxical. Make your inner peace so real, so tangible, that it affects the environment more profoundly than any words you could possibly say.
That's a really powerful concept, consciousness itself as a kind of technology. How do the sources suggest we actually practice this day to day?
Right. The material flat out states that the most advanced transdimensional technology you have is your own consciousness. Specifically, the practice of deep stillness and focused, loving intention. Meditation, conscious breathing, they aren't just nice-to-haves. The sources describe them as literal world-healing devices. Even just a few minutes of coherent stillness in your day, they claim, creates ripples. Ripples that influence events in ways our current science maybe can't fully map yet.
Can you give a specific practice they recommend?
Sure. They encourage something simple. Sit quietly. Bring your awareness to your breath. Let it calm down, deepen, until you feel a sense of gentle expansion, maybe in your chest area. Then, either out loud or just in your mind, say something like, I am presence here and now. Imagine those words, kind of, igniting in your heart center, shining warmly like a little sun. As soon as you feel that warmth, that inner radiance, gently direct it outward with your intention. Bring to mind the flood-affected areas in Texas, the towns, the rivers, the people, the animals.
And just send that light.
Yes, but not in an aggressive way. You're not fighting the flood or attacking anything dark. You're simply informing everything in that region, every water molecule, every particle of soil, every being, that it, too, is part of cosmic harmony. You're reminding the elements that they can return to balance, so they don't have to express chaos. The key is the loving, confident intention behind it, not the words themselves, but the feeling.
And the sources also mention something called holy detachment.
Yep.
How does that fit into responding to disasters like floods?
Ah, yes, the art of holy detachment. This comes up because, well, disasters often involve loss. Especially floods, they sweep away possessions, homes, things we're attached to. The sources suggest that if we hold on too tightly to material things, or even to specific desired outcomes, it creates a kind of energetic anchor, an anchor that can keep us and others stuck in fear.
So detachment isn't about not caring.
Not at all. It's about cultivating enough inner space, enough inner freedom to flow with change, even really drastic change, without losing your center. If your entire sense of security is wrapped up in your house or your belongings, then losing them in a flood can lead to total despair. But if you've practiced detachment, the material claims, you'll respond differently, from a higher place. You'll prioritize life, love, connection over stuff.
How do you practice that?
They suggest a visualization exercise. Imagine something you really treasure being swept away. Acknowledge the feeling that comes up, the sadness, the fear, whatever it is. Then consciously, mentally, let it go. Release it. The goal isn't to become callous, it's to strengthen that muscle of non-attachment. So if a real emergency hits, you're less likely to be paralyzed by material loss and more able to act wisely, protecting what truly matters. Life, safety, each other. It builds resilience.
Okay, so it seems like all these practices, the meditations, the intention setting, the detachment, it all comes down to consistency, a daily rhythm that the sources really emphasize. Can you describe what that consistent rhythm might look like?
Yes, consistency is key, according to this material. They really push back against the idea of just doing one big meditation or sending energy once. They say large one-off gestures are less effective than steady, purposeful, daily dedication.
So like a daily routine?
Exactly. They sketch out a possible rhythm. Maybe at dawn, you take just 5 minutes. Meditate, align with the highest good for all. Visualize a soft, healing light spreading over Texas or any affected area as the sun rises. Affirm that everything there is returning to balance. Then maybe midday, just a quick check-in with yourself. Am I centered? Or has the news, the day's stress, thrown me off? If you're off balance, pause. Take a few deep breaths, realign with your heart, maybe silently repeat a core affirmation like, I am peace, just to reset your energy field.
And in the evening?
At night, maybe as the stars come out, imagine the entire region bathed in a protective light. They often suggest sapphire blue. See this light soaking into the soil, reaching deep, illuminating any hidden pockets of fear or trauma left from the event, and gently dissolving them. They even suggest visualizing this light flooding any secret tunnels of negativity, whether literal tunnels or metaphorical pathways of dark intention, causing those negative plans to just fizzle out, disintegrate.
And the claim is that doing this consistently, even by a relatively small group, can actually make a difference, a tangible one.
That's precisely the claim. The sources state that if you establish and maintain this daily cadence of focused, loving intention, you generate a powerful cumulative effect. They suggest that if even, say, 100 dedicated people held this kind of synchronized intention for a focused period, they give an example like 48 consecutive days, it creates an energetic momentum, a momentum that can tangibly influence physical outcomes. Well, you might see weather patterns in that area stabilize over time, becoming more resistant to artificial manipulation. Or maybe community healing happens faster, more smoothly. This isn't just wishful thinking, the sources argue. It's tied to the quantum nature of reality. Collective human intention, when it's aligned with love and harmony, can shift probabilities. It can help bring chaotic systems back into order. And the sources offer a reminder. You were born for these times. As starseeds awakening humans, whatever label fits you, didn't come here just to watch the movie. You came to be active co-creators, primarily through your consciousness. When you hold that stance calm, loving, unwavering in your inner knowing, the material suggests that even the forces of nature respond. The water, the wind, the earth, they recognize that harmony, that mastery, and they collaborate with you instead of raging against you.
So we've journeyed through quite a landscape today. Following the narrative presented in these sources, we went from what looked like a natural disaster to a deeply layered event, one involving shadowy manipulations, heroic counteractions, and critically, the immense power and role of human consciousness in it all. The message seems to be, you are not just passive victims in this story. The sources suggest you are actually key players, authors of whatever comes next.
That's the core message. The darkest storm, as the sources affirm, simply cannot withstand the brilliance of a single heart fully lit up with awareness and love, let alone the millions who are now awakening across the globe. So the advice is, keep observing, keep learning, keep doing your inner work, keep healing yourself and sending that love, that coherent energy wherever it's needed. Know that in the view presented here, you're not alone. We walk beside you, we learn alongside you, guiding these turbulent waters together to the highest possible outcome. An awakened humanity and a world finally restored to balance.